Thank you all for coming. I know there's a lot of COVID and flu and everything else going around once again, but at least we're here at our first live Women in Data event for a very, very long time. So thank you. Yeah, he's correct. Yeah, there you go. So firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge, of course, that the land we're standing on today and acknowledge the tribe of the Gadigal people and pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. And obviously, thank you all very much for being here today. So today we are at Women in Data. For those who have never been to a Women in Data before, we set this up about 8 years ago. And the simple reason behind it was we had placed someone over here from Singapore. She joined a team of 11 data analysts and 10 of them were men, and she was by herself. And so she rang us and she said, is there anywhere at all that I can get together with other women within my field? Hence, Women in Data was brought together. We all know now that around the globe, there are plenty of women in data. And here in Australia, we've got some great groups like Girls Who Code, Women in Data Science, who do some really cool stuff as well. And I think today's topic should be really interesting. And although it is about flexible working models for parents, it also affects those of us who don't have children, like myself. So why am I here, standing here as a man with no children doing this panel? I'm not too sure. Yeah, with a beard. I'm not too sure, but at the end of the day, we do manage people with children. We work with colleagues who've got children, so it does affect absolutely everybody. A few thank yous today. First of all, to Havas for this amazing space. Thank you very much. Yeah, why not? And Michaela for setting it up. And a massive thank you to Michaela, who is our ambassador for Women in Data. And she's been part of the group for many, many years and an advocate for everything to do with the group. So thank you very much for that, Michaela. I'd also like to say thank you to Becca at the back there, who set this up from Airtasker. It's a great partner for us to have with Women in Data. They do some really cool stuff with their flexible working models. And we've got Dan on the panel tonight who'll introduce himself soon to talk to you about what they do as well. And I'd also like to thank my team, especially Sam and Andriana. So Andriana over there. And Sam at the back, who's only been with us for about 8 months, and she has taken to this with aplomb and taken over the running of the Women in Data group. So thank you and well done, Sam. We've also got a raffle this evening, which Andriana is going to organize for us. And Airtasker have very kindly given us a winning voucher of $250 worth of Airtasker credit. Yeah, pretty good. So at some point, Andriana's going to wave and be like, this is who's won, and tell us. And hopefully it's someone here. Maybe it'll be someone online at home. So today's topic, as I mentioned, is all about hybrid working models. We're going to do a few, you can't win, no, unfortunately. We've got a few topics that we're going to be going through. As I mentioned, this affects probably everybody in this room. We're going to talk about individualized versus blanket policies as well and how that affects different businesses. And more importantly, we're going to look to what the future holds. And we're going to talk to some great experts here who've been through it themselves. So before I go in any further, who we are, Precision Sourcing, we are a data and tech recruitment company. Why do we do these events? Well, it's quite simply so that we can try and get more embedded into the communities that we work within and give a little bit back and be part of the community rather than on the outside. But I will stop and I will let the panel introduce themselves because I always think it's more important to introduce yourselves. Maybe I'll share a mic with you. That would make sense. You want to start with that? Okay, we're going to start over that way with Dan. And yeah, please all introduce yourselves however you wish.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan. I'm the Chief Data Officer for Airtasker. Airtasker is a two-sided marketplace where our customers can get anything done, really, from some of the classics like moving house to one of my favorite ones was someone lost their pet ferret in the wall and they were looking for one of those special types of cameras that you can kind of pop in and look around. We've got a Slack channel called Unusual Tasks where people kind of drop some of these highlights through. And at the same time, taskers, we call them, they can make money by bidding for work or putting up their services, listing them on the platform. Airtasker's, the way I run the data function is it's broken up into data products as well as decision science and analytics. And I'm excited to be here tonight. We have quite a flexible workplace, so I'm happy to share more about that shortly.
Okay, so I'm Michaela Aguilar. I have been working in digital and data and technology 35 years. I have 2 children, 2 sons, 25 and 22. They, thank God, one is an urban planner, the other one is a dietitian, so they they stayed away from technology. I'm passionate about two things. I'm passionate about being a mother. I always loved being a mother. And I'm also passionate about women in technology and data. I brought up my children by myself. My husband took off. And obviously I'm older. I have had a pretty hard time as a single mom to bring up my kids and compete. And it is so great to see how things have changed, but I think things haven't changed enough. And, you know, now I'm in a position where I can really help push, because I have lost all fear of employers not saying what I think. And that's really important as a woman and as a mother, to just demand what should be ours rightfully, you know. And that sounds very radical, but I really think we need a revolution rather than trying to continue finding compromise.
Hi, I'm Chantal Velasque. I'm a Frozy, I'm French Australian, so you can hear it in my accent. Data and analytics exec, I've been around for 20 years plus. I'm actually a lady of leisure. I don't work at the moment. Yeah, that's so good. So it's the first time in my life I don't have a job. I left Westpac 2 months ago, and I swapped the madness of delivering large programs with preparing year 11 exam with my son, which is as mad. No, I just decided to have a little break. The program was really intense and we successfully delivered it. So I thought, you know what, it's okay. I'll do it. So anyway, so I'm looking for a job, people. It's full of recruitment people here. Did consulting and then corporate Australia, big companies, so Suncorp, CBA, Westpac. And actually, where I was consulting when my kids were younger, and now they're teenagers, and corporate is much more comfortable for me. So that's the story, and yeah, looking forward to the discussion today.
How loud is it? Is that good? So Chris Brinkworth is my name. I work for a company called Civic Data. Actually, put your hands up if you say data versus data. Who says data? Now who says data? Yeah, see? I change it up. I sometimes call myself Civic Data versus Civic Data because I spent a fair amount of time, I'm English originally, but I spent a fair amount of time in America as well. So I was here for 7 years from the year 2000 in what was the first ASX listed digital media buying business. So I was the guy that helped put lots of cookies on lots of computers back then and until recently. Then I moved to the US, where I spent 6 years working within marketing technology. So I ran a SaaS business over there. If anyone's ever heard of tag management, Google Tag Manager, all those kind of technologies, that's the world I played in. And all the programmatic ad tech and everything else that sits within them. So now I'm back here. The past year, I've been setting up this business called Civic Data with some partners. And our focus is very much around removing that problem of cookies. So it's kind of like I've created our own business model over the years. So, but in all seriousness, the big challenge with Australia that no one's really paying attention to at the moment are incoming privacy regulations and how you can and how you cannot collect data. And our focus is around the marketing technology that a lot of companies are still using that may be actually tracking people or passing data to places they have no idea where. And we basically help tidy all that up for clients.
Fantastic. Well, as you can see, we've got a great panel of experts. I just want to make it clear as well, if you do want to ask questions as you go, please just chuck your hands in the air. This is pretty relaxed and flexible with what we're doing. But the first question that we're going to go with, I'm going to come to you first, Michaela, if that's okay. As you mentioned, you have lots of experience in raising children over the years. So can you just firstly describe the experiences that you had previously, maybe 10, 20 years ago, and what you started to see change in regards to flexibility for parents?
Well, there were a couple of challenges. First of all, and I still feel very often that I'm the only woman in meetings. So maybe now there are 2 in a meeting of 10, but it's still very male dominated. When you're young, you're more attractive. So men look at you in those meetings differently. You know, it gets better when you're older because sort of this, I'm not saying that I was amazingly good looking, but you know, men look at you differently when you're 25 in technology compared to when you're 57 in technology. You know, now I can be everyone's mom, but then I was maybe eligible, maybe not, you know. So there were many uncomfortable moments where I was belittled. It still happens now, but I can deal with it better than I did then. And I remember when my kids were little, sort of I have no family here. My husband took off, so I had to do the drop off, the pickup. And that was really problematic for people to understand that I had responsibility outside work. So I couldn't go for drinks, I couldn't go for breakfast, I couldn't be part of team activities because I had to work through lunch because I literally only had an 8-hour window. And I just wasn't part of the team. Even I was probably more efficient than anyone else because I had to pack 10 hours into 8. So fast forwarding that situation, it is a lot better now, and you're not disrespected because you're a mother or because you're a single mother in particular. So I find now there's a real understanding that women bring up kids on their own, they have responsibilities, they need to go and pick up, drop off. 20 years ago, or when my kids were little, it just wasn't possible that you could easily say, okay, my child is sick, I need to pick them up from school. So I had to start consulting to get this flexibility. And I think nowadays, organizations are much more understanding than they were back then. And I mean, we talk about organizations like AC Nielsen. So I worked there for 6 years, and even with a large corporation, it was really difficult to be part of it.
So that's a great topic to continue, if that's all right for you, Chantal, as well. Just in regards to, obviously you mentioned you're year 11 now. So what change have you seen just the last few as well? Would it mirror Michaela's thoughts?
Yes, I think the support from companies and the government has changed significantly. When the oldest one was born in 2005, I got $6,000 and that was it. And then I decided to take some time off and I was unpaid. So there was absolutely nothing in place. You had to decide if you wanted to work, go to put your kid in childcare, pay for it by yourself. I mean, you had a little bit of money back, but almost nothing. And I think now most of the companies are trying to differentiate themselves, you know, offering packages or parental leave or I don't know, you got a lot of stuff in place now. I mean, I can talk about Westpac, but all the companies now have a plan for not only women, but dads as well, or carers if it's not, you know, the guardians. But it's just, I think it has evolved so much and it's widely accepted. I agree with Michaela. I think, you know, earlier it was really hard to say, I'm not coming because there's the Christmas kind of whatever at school. And, you know, you couldn't go and you felt really guilty. I think now the guilt is going away a bit. You have the ability to attend many more events at school, or not even at school, but for you, if you have something, a family thing, it's more accepted now, definitely.
Fantastic. And I mean, as recruiters, we talk about it all the time. It's how you differentiate now in terms of the policies and how you retain people. So it's a great time to come to you, Dan, because I know Airtasker has been doing a lot of work on their actual specific policies to help. So it'd be great if you could talk to some of those that you've implemented.
Sure. Yeah, very recently we had a CHRO join the company, Isa Nottermans, and she's come in and really like been a whirlwind of change for us in this space. And I can share a few of our policies. Some of them like I hadn't encountered before. So we have quite primary carers leave it's 18 weeks and the secondary carers leave is 4 weeks. We've also got miscarriage leave, and that's a couple of weeks if it's before 8 weeks. And it's 8 weeks if it's after 20 weeks, which is really fantastic. We've also got some domestic violence leave. There's 10 days a year that you get either if you are in that situation or also if you are supporting someone. And there's also financial support available for housing and emergency support and that kind of thing, as well as like just the support of the people operations team. So a great set of policies. I was talking to one of the women in the people ops function recently, and we were kind of talking about where the industry is moving, because a lot of it is done, I imagine, like because it's the right thing, but there is also a lot of differentiation. And some of the, maybe like the leading edge is starting to lose the distinction between primary and secondary carers in terms of raising children, and also allowing that blocker leave to be taken not continuously, but perhaps like you push it off or you move it around, because depending when it might be required. So it is great to see that.
And was that something that was easy in a way to implement? Was that a top down, or was it something that took time?
It was top down, and yes, it seemed to happen quite quickly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the CEO is quite supportive. I think it was just a lot of permission given. Like we hired you, you know the space really well. Like go and put together some really leading policies for us.
For me, that's impressive because of the size of business Airtasker is as well. We work with. Oh, a question. Sorry, let's do it. Question at the back. Oh, great. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, we are in the range of about 150 or so people. So we definitely are small. Like I would say we don't have that big company feel. Yeah.
For those at home,
Yeah.
Airtasker is saying that they had the policies approved in 2 days, which is pretty crazy if we're talking about how long it takes in the bigger businesses. But having said that, there are some big businesses out there who've got great parental leave policies. Origin Energy, for one, I have a friend who works there. His wife took 6 months, and then he was able to take 4 as the secondary carer, and he could spread that out over whenever he wanted, maybe come back 2 days a week and use it. So whilst it is easier perhaps to implement as a medium business, it is still happening in the larger ones. Now, I'm going to come to you next, Chris, logically, of course. You're starting your own business from scratch. So you've got a great opportunity to start implementing things from the beginning and from scratch. So what thoughts have you been having as you've been growing your business as to how you're going to navigate these policies?
I'm doing it from experience. So I am a single dad, 50-50 week about. So my daughter just turned 5 in March. And I actually, when I separated 3 years ago, I made the decision, because I normally run other people's businesses and open the offices for them, etc. My last role, I had a team of 14 over in Singapore, a team here, and that just doesn't give you the time to be very present. So it made sense for me to start a business and work the lifestyle I wanted to do, so I could be present for my daughter. So that's where I started, was actually with myself. And I couldn't have done it without good partners to start with as well. People who actually understood and can take the workload off of you. And listening to what Dan was just saying there about all of the policies that he's putting in place, I think all of the words were about support as well. And when you look at any business, and I've worked in businesses which are very large through to very small, through to everything. I think any leader who wants to create success for his team or her team, their team, it's about supporting them to let them get the job done that they were hired for and that they applied for, that helps them in their career, their work-life balance. So support is generally, we will help you, support you with whatever education you want, whatever tools you need, but absolutely anything to do with managing that work-life balance is extremely important as well. So to the point there, sorry, is without people in your own management team that support you as well when you're starting a business, without clients who understand what you're doing as well, without friends who will jump in if needed to support, yeah, I don't think you're going to really get very far. So I think this support's an important part.
Definitely a great point. And so this leads nicely into, you mentioned about outcomes and doing the job that you were hired to do, which I think is a topic we need to tackle. At Precision, we work a 4-day week. That's not me just going, we're amazing, but we can do that because we're an outcome focused business. It's not about what you're putting in, it's what comes out at the other end. So I'd love to go to you, Chantel, on this one, if that's all right. Obviously coming from a Westpac or a Suncorp, huge business, maybe a little bit harder than the role that we're in to measure output versus input. Do you see that as a possible big change that we could take? And how easy would that be to actually implement across the larger businesses?
I must say, I've been thinking about that quite a lot. We discussed that in our prep sessions, people. It's, there's this thinking or this belief that we're going to move from a system where we were measure on what you put into, how many hours you're putting into work. And now, if you working from home, we need to measure the outcome. But it's always been on outcome, actually, it's just, if really, your company is measuring you on how many hours you're working every day, I think you have a wrong leader, or you're in the wrong company anyway. So the people who are now saying, oh, working from home, it's a big issue because I cannot really control what my people are doing, are the ones who had the problem in the first place anyway. But yeah, definitely, I think what I've learned through COVID was making sure that I was super clear on what the expectations were with the people. And when you face to face, you share your company vision, you share your expectation, milestones, what we need to achieve as a group. I find that online, I really had to share the message more often. I had to over-communicate and go again and again. And in different contexts, not always the same meeting. I don't know, Sneha was in my team there. She can say I'm lying. But I think that was the idea of using different forums to send the message and remind everybody what the milestones were and where they were important and how they were contributing to achieving the milestone. That was the big thing. So I'm really a big fan on measuring the success on outcome, but at the end of the day, it's still very much, if you're in the office, people, or if you're online, they're going to check if you're online at 9 p.m. or something. But it's a cultural issue, right? So it was there, it's still there.
Dan, I know you've got some thoughts on this as well.
Yeah. It's a really interesting question. It's making me think what you're saying there, Chantel. I think, I have to agree, absolutely. Like, the knowledge work that we do in data is not really something that makes sense to measure in hours. And I'm even struggling with the idea of measuring outcomes as if there's like some weekly kind of cadence there where you can like quantify it. And how much of it is related to trust, I guess, and not just like trust, but felt trust. Because I also feel like in the work that I do, and there's a lot of people who are quite passionate at Airtasker as well, but it's like internally we need to find and manage that relationship to work and be able to make the boundaries where we feel that we're comfortable with what we've done and we're able to kind of put a stop to it, I guess, or pause and take a break. So, yeah.
I think trust and also empathy, they go hand in hand there as well. So you're you trust someone. Was it you that was saying trust someone from the start? Your original boss, as the boss, yeah. So I'll let Chantal talk about that in a second. But I think you get to a point with empathy. You can give so much empathy to someone, or someone give you that empathy until you kind of run out of that empathy as well. So there's only a certain amount of it. So there's trust, but I think the empathy piece, if someone's not kind of responding to that empathy and still delivering, even though you're giving them every opportunity, that's another core part of it. But empathy in the workplace covers so much as well. It covers everything that you've talked about, which you're now putting into policies, even in a smaller business. If you've got the empathy and you understand that someone's got to actually leave at 2:30 to get to school for 3 to pick up the kid, then as long as they let you know that's happening, you can empathize around it. But if you're not aware of it as well, then that empathy can't be there. So I think that's another important word as well, on top of what you were saying there, Dan, around trust, that empathy piece.
And Michaela, to finish us off there.
Yeah, I also want to point out there's a difference if you sit on client side or on services side. So, and sort of, I come from the services side business. I was working for Havas for a long time, and my job was always hitting a number, managing resources, delivering work for clients. That included CBA, Westpac, you know, large and small. And I found in my career very often that clients can be very demanding, and there were clients that didn't care if I have to work Saturday, Sunday, or pick up my child. I just had to deliver that piece of work, and coincidentally a colleague was sick, whatever, you know. It was sometimes bone breaking, you know. So what I want to suggest is, if you sit on client side, really try and understand the services business you work with. So who is actually on that team? Are there women with kids on the team, or are they all 25-year-old guys? I don't know, whatever that is, because that means you can manage expectations better, you know, and you understand you maybe need to give them an extra 2 or 3 days buffer to deliver that dashboard implementation, whatever it is, because something unforeseen could happen, you know. Whereas on client side, that's easier to manage, you know. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I do, yes. I feel I should break into song or something. So as someone who often engages companies to consultants to come in and do the work, I think there's a really important piece about everybody having those conversations about how you're all going to work to start with. And that builds on the trust and the empathy and all of those things to begin with, so that you're not just saying, I'm getting 5 hours and I'm expecting you, or 500 hours, whatever it is, but ensuring that you have that open communication and you manage it going through. And then that just becomes a capability conversation, right? All the way through the engagement of how is this going to work? Because you're not just buying the hours of work. Surely now, these days in this modern world, you're buying the company and the ethos and everything they stand for. And if they're not going to match your company on all of those things, maybe don't play with them in the first place, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Marie, of course. No, I was about to say, yes. And Westpac, we had a team with contractors, consultants, and permanent. And I think, to extend to what Michaela was saying, it's about to know your team, wherever they're coming from. And not just for parents and not just for moms. Actually, we had a young guy in the team who had mental health issues through COVID, right? He was super active, social, sharing a place with other people, but he felt really lonely. And the team really, you know, put it together to make sure we were supporting him. And we didn't care if he was a perm or consultant or whatever. And I think it's very much, yeah, knowing how is your team and making sure that everybody can access this kind of flexibility. So it's not just parents. I think everybody's in different, you know, stage or step in their life. So you got people who are about to retire as well, and they need time, because they need to plan what's next. So that's everybody needs flexibility in some ways and probably at a different time during their career. But I think it's important that we offer this opportunity to everybody, not just the parents.
That's great. And that leads lovely into the next question. And you can continue if you wish on this one, but how do you have those conversations? So if you have people who are parents consistently leaving the office at 2:30 or getting into the office late, and then you've got maybe the younger or the older crowd who haven't got the young kids anymore, sat there going, hang on a minute, well, what about me and where do I fit into this? How do you go about having those conversations with your team and with those people for them to understand? I'm happy for you to continue if you wish, Chantal. Or...
I can talk about that stuff forever. No, I really do think it's through communication, right? You need to be open. You need to know the people. So obviously when you have a large team, it's a bit trickier, but you need to know how they operate, right? Some people are waking up early. They like to do stuff before everybody comes online. Some of them, they prefer picking up the kids, or we had a guy single. He would love to take 2 hours at lunchtime to go to the gym and work later at night. It's just, I think, as you said, as long as the rest of the team knows how they're operating and that's working fine with their deadlines, it's okay. And, the big boys and girls, you hire them for a reason. So, they need to be accountable, but you need to trust them to do the right thing as well.
Perfect. So maybe to you, Michaela, on this as well. Obviously, what a lot of people are scared of with the new flexibility policies is losing the connection, losing the team side of everything. As we mentioned here, people are coming in at different times. How do you manage that aspect of it, of kind of keeping that belonging, which is a word that a lot of companies use these days?
Well, while I was still at Havas, I created an institution which was the drinks trolley, and I had an apron that had written on it CTO, Chief Trolley Officer, and I think I was the oldest person at Havas, and I just took my trolley, loaded it up with drinks, had my apron, and I walked to every desk and cracked a joke and gave someone a drink, and that created a place of belonging. And I think after I left, the drinks trolley stopped, but it was also, as a senior person, you just make yourself approachable. And this drinks trolley in our team, we were 110 people on the floor, just became this glue. And people came in for the drinks trolley. They were waiting for the email, and sometimes we had a theme, like I made cookies and we had guest ingredients, or I flavored some vodka with something and let them guess what I put in there, but it became this event, and it was once a month, but it sort of, suddenly everyone was one team and we all had something to celebrate and talk about. It was completely unrelated. And I think you can recreate this anywhere with 5 people, with 100 people.
So we've got something that we've been trying to implement in our business and learning, which is called creating moments. And it sounds like you've done that. You create a memory, you create a moment that people can get on board with. Chris, you want to keep going on that?
No one hear about your moments that everyone's getting on board with.
Well, the last moment we had, we went to Byron Bay for a long weekend as a team, and we got trapped there in the floods.
If any of the team are watching, you're not going to Byron Bay.
No. But well, we got trapped there in the floods, so we had to stay an extra 5 days, which was pretty cool and also quite scary because you were managing a remote team with 2 laptops with 15 of us there. So that was quite fun. So that was a moment that we had.
I think I was there at the same time, in a tent. Yes, I think I was there at the same time. 10. So I think I think it's interesting. I think there's a generational difference as well. So the generation who've grown up with the ability to understand how to remote work properly, understand how to switch between God knows how many monitors and tabs and everything else, and type very fast and accurately on the phone without kind of that. I actually believe that they perform better and prefer to be in a flexible work from home environment as well. I think there's others who have become accustomed. I don't know if anyone even smokes here. Are there any cigarette smokers here? Right, great. Right. So I was a smoker for till I was 30. I'm 47 in June, and I thank you everyone for that clapping. Yeah. But I had this clique of friends who are my smoking friends, right? You had this bond of people you would smoke with downstairs, and they were then the people you went for lunch with. You just met people as a community, kind of like the water. Well, it's true. It's this thing, and you have this clique. So, but I think people who grew up or kind of have been in an environment for 10, 15 years, they kind of miss it as well and want that. Whereas as a younger generation behaves slightly differently, and they know how to work from home. One thing that we do every single day, and we can only do this because it's a smaller company, but I believe there's 7 of us now. But I believe that you could do it in teams as well. It is a daily stand-up every single morning, even still remotely. It's a stand-up to talk about what's going on, and it's not just about workload, right? It's literally what else is happening. But it's a way for everyone just to communicate, because you still need that bond so people feel they're part of something. Because if you're very separate and detached, it's kind of like your original point about, that was your point earlier on about the Singapore lady comes from Singapore, didn't have anyone at all in data. So you set up the group for her. It's very hard, and I work in that larger agency, it's very hard to retain talent if there's only one person that's the data geek and there's no one around them that's a data geek that also understands that. They're going to leave to a company that's got more data geeks that understand them. So you do need that kind of camaraderie. Is that it? Camaraderie? Camaraderie.
Close enough.
Other things that work well I've found over the years, and I was telling the guys today, I'm going to pretend we're doing it at the company if they're watching, but we're not. But there is a tool, and if anyone wants to ask me for it, that I used in the US called Rapid Report. And the Rapid Report, it's a great way of helping to manage upwards and downwards as well, where even if you don't have a boss, it helps keep yourself in check, but also let other people know what you're up to. So it's very simple. The R stands for results. And results are actually things that you're really happy with that happened this past week. And that in itself is something about celebrating, something you accomplished, something you did, whether it was work related or not. So what are the 5 things that you've done? Then you've got actions, which are basically to-do lists. So what are the top 3 actions you want to get done this week? And then you've got priorities, which is the P, which is actually different to actions. So these are 3 critical things that you've got to get done. Then the D is actually, it used to be delayed. So what did you delay? But I changed it to decisions. So that gives people this way to empower themselves remotely of, I actually made a decision without bothering someone, without asking someone to do it. So what did you do that gave you this confidence to make a decision without asking about it? So you know you have the confidence to do it again in the future. So that's decisions. And then there's a couple more letters on there.
I in there that we missed? Or?
There is.
Cool.
So issues.
Okay.
Which
cool.
I also changed to ideas.
Okay, cool.
So if you don't have any issues, have ideas. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Can I take this one, Chris? Is that all, can I take this one? Is that all right? Can I butt in?
Absolutely. Yeah, go
So
for
there's
it.
30 of us, and we still
Don't say everyone goes to Byron. That's how
no,
you keep it alive.
no. So there's 30 of us, and we still do a daily stand-up every morning at 8:41. The reason we do it at 8:41 is because if you do it at 8:30, people are a couple of minutes late. But when it's 8:41, people are on time. Oh, the question, sorry, Ray, was how do you keep the stand-up alive and interesting every day to keep your team interested? Sorry, Ray. So yeah, 8:41, and we do similar things. We've never called it rapid, but it was interesting to hear that because, oh, there you are. Hey, Ray.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
Okay,
We
no
just
worries.
can't hear the question. Thank
No
you.
worries, mate. And we have the work stuff. And then we have the fun stuff. And the fun stuff is a really random question every day. I probably shouldn't repeat too many of them, but it's just, you know, from simple things like what you're doing this weekend to if you were an animal, what would you be, to if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? And we find that having those kind of questions in there mixed in with the work actions, just kind of, yes, Rob.
Okay, so I work in internal talent acquisition now for a company called Qualtrics. I was working with Joel 6 months ago. I think my favorite question was, if you were the other gender, what name would you have? And I just thought that was super interesting. That's the one that stuck out to me. That's the one that I remember.
I was hoping you wouldn't say anything too close to the
if
phone,
you
Rob.
had another gender,
Yeah.
if you had another gender and were another gender,
But we have huge debates and people are like, oh, why are we still doing these? Are these relevant for me? Why do I need to know about Sean's action versus David's action? So you just got to mix in a little bit of the fun with the work stuff as well. Dan, you were waiting very patiently, so we're going to go to you.
Thanks. Maybe I'm a little bit different here, but like I also think it's important to, not everything needs to be like fun or silly and social. Like I think it's really important to welcome all of people's lives into work and into the space. There's a process which I really like using, and we use it in our team meetings. It's basically called the check-in. A lot of you might have heard of this. It's like how you're feeling right now, maybe in your body, what's on your mind, kind of as a way to like put it in the middle into the space. And the way you do check-ins is people don't acknowledge it, like it doesn't turn into conversation, but everyone's kind of present to it, and it's there between us. And I think that's a really valuable way to kind of welcome all of everybody into the space and create a sense of like getting to know people, which you do need to be more intentional when you're remote.
100%. We did breathing was one stand up, by the way, the other week. We did a breathing exercise for half an hour. So there's definitely other things.
But Dan makes a very good point, because I think there is a distinction between the types of teams. So your team, given what you guys do as a very extrovert, I hate doing these kind of things, just as an FYI.
I do as well, just so you know. So.
I'm literally role playing right now, but true story. So she is, unfortunately. But to your point earlier on, I think how do you keep it alive if you're not extroverted? And if someone doesn't want to get involved and they are like, I've got this other stuff to think about as well. It's a really interesting question. One of the things that I do throw in that the team will, so our team is, I'm only the only Caucasian in the business of 7 across multiple Australians. And unfortunately, we did have a female employee who happily has gone to a much better opportunity from a career perspective, and I'm sure she'll be back at some point. But we are looking for females to hire at the moment. But I definitely call people out also as ways where if someone says something that could be part of cancel culture, but they're not saying it in that way, I'll definitely call it out as well. So there's little things I dig in. So this is my team only, right? But I dig in to just keep people on their toes as well. But I think there is a difference between what your team is, and Dan, you're saying there'll be people that need to check in as well. There's very different personalities. Different
style, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
Right, we've got to wrap up soon. So I've got 2 questions. One will be for everyone, but we'll go to the floor, don't worry. Dan, I want to talk to you about take-home data tests, because we've gone a little bit off topic, but obviously a lot of companies use testing during their interview processes. Some of them are quite in depth, and that can be a lot harder for perhaps people with kids and people with things going on. Have you adapted that in any way from maybe how you previously used to do it? Do you still use take-home tests?
We do use take-home tests. And I guess I'll relate a story where I got 2 take-home tests, and they were both excellent. One was 8 pages long, very detailed report. One was 1.5 pages. Very little formatting, kind of like not a lot of text and stuff. And on the face of it, the 8-page report looked, I did end up hiring both people actually, but the much shorter report was done by a woman who was a mother of children, and obviously like they don't, primary carers, mothers primarily don't have the same amount of time that say men do to go ahead and spend like, you know, the take-home test that we typically try and shoot for is maybe like 4 to 6 hours. It's maybe long in this kind of current climate, but that's a lot. That's a fair bit of time for people who have got other. And I guess what I would say is like, pay attention to that. Like, don't, particularly when it comes to a take-home test, like look for the clarity of thinking rather than, you know, the wrapping around it. Because the clarity of her thinking was absolutely there, but just the time to like make it pretty and expansive was not there. And that was enough to get her in for an interview. And she was fantastic.
You knew that before she took the test, that was her situation, or you were able to kind of
No,
deduce
it
that?
kind of came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah. I didn't feel it was a risk, but it was kind of like something I noticed in retrospect. Because I'm particularly interested in clarity of thinking more so, I was very happy to have it in, but it was yeah.
I'm gonna give you the mic, Ksenia, so Ray can hear us.
I'm actually quite curious because obviously you've mentioned that you didn't know that she was the primary carer, she was a mother when she was doing the test. So when you saw the test, it was basically you were judging the person just based on the test. I feel I work in a very male-dominated industry. I'm in trading, so we pretty much have. If you think that it's hard to find a woman, like a female technologist, try to find a female trader. But basically, I think because of that, obviously, in that type of environment, there is a big expectation on the tests as well. So this is the result that we want, and we don't really have anything that we can negotiate in that. And we don't really have that data point that I'm a single mother, I'm a mother, I need flexible working. So what we started doing is collecting data prior to actually speaking to people, and obviously have to be quite careful in collecting the data, but we try to get a bit more of a picture of who applies to our roles, whether they need any adjustments, any flexibility. Do you do anything similar to Airtasker? Do you think it's important to actually understand before you send someone a test what their personal circumstances are, or you'd rather just have a test without differentiating between different types of applicants?
I think what you're suggesting makes a lot of sense, and I think is fantastic. Yeah, I think particularly today, inquiring into I mean, often candidates tell us anyway. They're like, "Look, this is what's going on in my life, and this is how long it's likely to take me, and so forth." But I really like what you said.
Right, so just to quickly finish off, a very difficult question, which may just be a statement from all of you. What is utopia? What is what it should be in your mind? Like, what are you looking for the future generations? And with that being such a hard question, I will get any of you who wishes to step forward and answer that first.
I start, the first thing we need is paid maternity leave. That's the most important thing, that women who care for children are not losing out on income and superannuation. This is my biggest bugbear, that, yeah, we look after kids, but then the partner, who is most of the time male, brings home the dough, but he also gets the super, you know, and marriages and relationships break up, and usually women are left with close to nothing. And this has to change. That is my...
A very specific and
utopia.
easy to
Yep.
implement statement, what easy to understand statement, maybe not easy to implement. Thank you, Michaela.
Could you just clarify paid maternity leave, what you mean by that?
Well, paid maternity leave means that I can go and care for my child for a year, and at least 6 months I get full pay. And for the 12 months, I get the full amount of superannuation. So what happens here, if you're lucky, you can take your leave and you maybe get a token amount, but then usually after 3 months, you have no income whatsoever. And then hopefully you get the rollback that you left, you know, so that financial gap has to be bridged for women.
Oh, a question.
No, I do. Yeah, and I'm pretty excited. Ray will appreciate this as well. I'm really passionate about the idea of the super and the women or the primary carer. But just in my experience and women of my age who are sitting around with financial planners now thinking I want to retire in 10 years, look at my super versus my husband's. Because I decided to be the carer and take, I think it was probably about 6 to 7 years off, my super is nothing in comparison, because at the early part of my career, I wasn't able to contribute. And so add to paid maternity leave, being able to recontribute later on without any of the tax implications would be phenomenal for carers and, well, just me actually, but yeah.
Great point. Well done, Michaela. That was very well said. Who would like to follow that? You don't need to worry because you're role playing. So anything you
So-
say, you know.
I'm, and I mentioned this on the prep call as well. I'm very big on candor. I think being candid in business is such an important thing, and it comes back to the check-in, what you were talking about, Dan, as well. If you're checking in and letting people know what's going on, if you're honest about what's happening in your life, and again, we talk about utopia, right? If you're as an employer, if you're honest that if you feel that you're about to hire someone because you need to make numbers up from a gender perspective or an ethnicity perspective, then if you're not candid with yourself, that this person might not actually be able to do the role. And that's unfair on them as well. If you hire someone to make up numbers and it was the wrong hire for the role, then that's not great for them either. And that's unfair on them. So in a utopia for me, just to give you an answer for the damn question, would be about, I think if everyone could just be candid, and having more candor in the workplace is much happier, I think.
Good news for you. I think Chantel's going to be very candid with you right now.
I am. Okay. Yeah, I don't have problems with quotas. And I think if the Rory is not hiring for the right person, I mean, for years we've been hiring guys for the wrong reasons and they weren't qualified. And we did it anyway because there was nobody else. So I have a strong belief that we can help that a bit. And I think my utopia would be probably more kind of save the word kind of thing. But if globally every leader girl could go to school, you know, looking at what's happening in Afghanistan, it's just, I'm crying in front of a TV every time, right? It's just go to school first, and then in our kind of developed countries, making sure that we have a right education. You know, we don't have pink and blue, and and girls in technology can do whatever they want. I'm like Michaela. I've been the only girl in the room for so long in financial services and IT. It's appalling, and I'm so glad. I look around, and there are a lot of women who work with me, and we really had to battle through, right? To hire girls, and they're super qualified. It's just by default in the hiring process, quite often they didn't get the preference. Why? Because maybe sometimes they're a bit quieter. And I don't know, I can debate that with you guys, people, recruitment, but even yesterday I was in a conference, and there was this guy from, can't remember, what was it, PwC or something, and he was saying the topic was how to build a great team. And one of his points was high for culture fit. So please define what culture fit is. Is it looking like your leadership team or your CEO, or what is it? So, quite often people who are hiring are using that as a, point to make sure that actually, people who are different, not just female, but with a different cultural background, they're not fitting the culture. What is it?
The biggest change that we had as a business was a few years ago when we stopped trying to culture fit, and we had people who would join and enhance our culture and change it. So we don't have a culture fit anymore because everybody's different. So I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge. But and the other point before I give the mic. As mom of two boys, I think I have such a big role to play on changing the culture. You know, everybody is saying, oh, little girls, we have to treat them well, whatever. I think everybody agrees with that. All the little girls will love to be able to do whatever. The parents of girls will be loving it. I think most of our responsibility is with us parents of boys, because we have to make sure that they're doing the right thing. So
Great statement. And Dan, to bring us home.
Well, big question, Utopia. I appreciate hearing everybody else's, what they've shared. It reminds me of one of the analysts that I work with. She related her story of just not really thinking that technology was something that, you know, girls did. And she kind of gravitated into kind of more of the softer skills space until she just kind of realized, like, why not just pick up the technology, and she's excellent at it. So there's maybe a controversial statement around culture not being your friend. And I think so much, like, even when it comes to, I guess I don't want us to ask for permission, basically. Like, not go and ask, is it okay if I take the time to spend it with my kid or anything? But you go there and make a statement about, like, this is what I'm doing. And I think we need to be brave and give ourselves permission to just speak up and claim it. And I also think we need to work less. 4 days a week, 3 days a week, like, is
4 days a
maybe
week
my
works well.
utopia. But, like, you know, I think there is emerging research that your productivity does really start to dip. And I feel it in my own body, like a 40-hour week, I'm pretty wasted at the end of it. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And I think we'd all be a lot happier and a lot healthier and more productive if we just weren't working so hard.
I'm a lot
So,
happier and healthier since 4 days. So
Yeah.
and I know the team is, but one more statement, Michaela, before we finish?
Yes. I can't wait for the day when we are not called the girls anymore, regardless of age. I hate it. I really dislike it when a male colleague says, the girls. Oh, we're not girls, we're women.
And on that bombshell,
Mm.
a round of applause for our panel this evening. Well, honestly, that was super helpful, super amazing. And you were so honest, all of you, and you were willing to put yourselves out there. So thank you very much. I'm sure that content helped everybody in the room. So thank you again.